All right, folks, let's see if you can hear me now. Everything is working fine. Check, check, check. If you can hear me now, give me a 5x5. All right. So, yeah, this is your crisis report for May 31st, 2025. Hopefully, you can hear me. It just went 15 minutes into that good night with no audio going on. 5x5. I have no clue what happened. Mic was working and everything. So, all right. Well, welcome back to the crisis report. We are covering the tension with China. It is rising. Good news is I've gone through most of this now and got it pretty good. So, yeah, I don't know what happened. I get like everything. I just get going and then check it back every once in a while, and everybody's silently screaming into the chat. So I appreciate you telling me. I guess only losing 16 minutes is could be worse. So my apologies, but yeah, the tensions with China are rising, and yeah, we're going to cover all of it on your crisis report. So let's get started with Ice Age Farmer. So for those that don't know who Ice Age Farmer is, a few years ago, he was a very prolific creator. He was on YouTube, he was on BitChute, he was on numerous things. He basically went away. No one know what happened to him. And so he's now back. And I think his last post on Telegram was November 8th, 2022, and then total radio silence. No one saw him. So he's concerned with what's going on, and he has showed up again. And here we are. So I want to read his statement. If you are not following him on Telegram, strongly suggest you do. He is incredibly smart. He is well spoken, and he really sees the big picture. So here we go. Years ago, the WEF announced they would mess things up so badly that people would beg for AI to run things. People were alarmed and said, "We'll never allow this to happen. Klaus is evil." And yet now, some of those same people are cheering on Trump, Musk, hailing techno-nationalism, and demanding AI government, walking right into the digital convergence of the fourth industrial revolution. It's pretty surreal, and it's a clear indicator that waiting for some strongman or tech magnate to save the day is not going to pan out, ever. We each have to do our part of the work. This channel is returning to look at what that work is and how we do it. Stick around if you want to save the world. So we welcome back Mr. Christian, and I wish him luck. All right, here we go. President Trump says China has totally violated its trade agreement with the United States. Supreme Court has cleared the way for the Trump administration to end temporary protected status and work authorization for more than 500,000 migrants from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. Don Lemon has suggested that banning white people from the United States would be good for national security. World Economic Forum founder Klaus Schwab has filed a criminal complaint against the anonymous whistleblowers who accused him of misconduct. White House has announced steel tariffs. They will double from 25 to 50% starting next week. United States Defense Secretary Hegseth has warned that China is credibly preparing to use force to shift the regional balance of power. Trump has used Palantir's AI Foundry to collect and centralize Americans' data from federal agencies, potentially enhancing surveillance and creating detailed profiles from government data. Hegseth is saying that there's no reason to sugarcoat it, that the threats China poses are real and it could be imminent. Turkey has proposed to host Trump-Putin-Zelensky meeting, according to their minister. 100% of Gazans are at risk of famine, according to UN spokespeople. Supreme Court has letting Trump revoke legal status for 500,000 migrants from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. Trump is asked if he has any marital advice for the Macrons after plane incident, and he replies, always keep the door closed. He said the slap wasn't good, but that he's spoken to the French president and he and his wife are fine. Emmanuel Macron announced the return of a Palestinian state and gave Netanyahu a deadline to stop the crimes in Gaza. The recognition of a Palestinian state was not simply a moral duty, but a political requirement. Europeans must harden their collective position against Israel if there is no response that is commensurate with the humanitarian situation that is being provided in the coming hours and days. Trump is claiming he almost destroyed China and that he saved it from tariffs that he had imposed. He said on his Truth Social, quote, 2 weeks ago, China was in grave economic danger. The very high tariffs I set made it virtually impossible for China to trade into the United States marketplace, which is by far number one in the world. We went, in effect, cold turkey with China, and it was devastating for them. Many factories closed, and there was, to put it mildly, civil unrest. I saw what was happening and didn't like it for them, not for us. I made a fast deal with China in order to save them from what I thought was going to be a very bad situation, and I didn't want to see that happen. Because of this deal, everything quickly stabilized, and China got back to business as usual. Everybody was happy. That is the good news. The bad news is that China, perhaps not surprisingly to some, has totally violated its agreement with the U.S. So much for being Mr. Nice Guy. Representative of Russia, the UN Nebenja, says that Russia is fully aware that the US and UK are striking its territory. Russia is fully aware of the direct involvement of the US and UK in strikes against its territory. From target coordinates to missile flight paths, every step is under their control. This is a big complaint they've had for a long time. The geospatial stuff is all basically controlled by America and our technology. Trump has tapped Palantir to create a master database on every American, according to the New Republic. Trump administration has sought access to detailed citizen data, including bank account numbers, student debt amounts, medical claims, and disability status from government databases. Palantir has secured over $113 million in federal contracts since Trump took office, with ongoing talks to expand its technology to the Social Security Administration and the Internal Revenue Service, according to 6 government officials and Palantir employees. From Kharkiv to Zaporozhye, Ukrainian forces are fortifying a 350-kilometer front with trenches, dragon's teeth, and barbed wire in anticipation of a Russian offensive. America let its military-industrial might wither, and China is booming because of it. China's military-industrial surge versus U.S. decline looks like this. China leads in shipbuilding, missile capacity, raw materials. The U.S. lacks sailors, factories, rare earths. China can retool civilization industry fast, and the U.S. cannot. China controls overwhelming shares of key raw materials, 77% of rare earths, 92% of graphite, 99% of cobalt. These are essential for weapons, systems. U.S. efforts to diversify sourcing have so far failed. Canada is considering joining Trump's Golden Dome missile defense system. The U.S. does not plan to send a delegation to the talks in Istanbul between Ukraine and Russia. Pakistan and India near border troop drawdown after the worst clashes in decades. General Shahir Shamshad Mirza says Pakistan and India are close to returning to pre-conflict troop levels after severe border clashes. Mirza warned that next time the window for international diplomacy may be too short. India denied any foreign mediation in the ceasefire despite reports of U.S. involvement. Washington Post cites a European diplomat. If Netanyahu's government doesn't change course, European pressure will continue to mount. If Macron says if we abandon Gaza and let Israel do what it wants, we lose all credibility. Macron says that China should prevent North Korea from deploying troops on European soil. New York Times, Musk abused ketamine, ecstasy, mushrooms during a political push. This is total crap. According to the New York Times, Elon Musk heavily used ketamine, ecstasy, and psychedelic mushrooms during his political involvement and growing ties with Trump. Source claimed took ketamine so often it caused bladder issues. He also reportedly carried a daily pillbox with 20 drugs, including stimulants. Friends and associates were alarmed by his erratic behavior, controversial gestures, and statements like chanting or like wanting Trump to win for the future of civilization. Now, I know a little something about trying to run your daily life on multiple substances. You can't do what that man does with multiple substances going through. I'm sorry, I don't believe anything in that article. Now, am I saying he's never used a drug or anything like that? I don't know about that. But walking around with a pillbox with 20 different drugs and thinking that you're going to function on the kind of levels that he does, I highly doubt it. Trump administration plans to expand restrictions on China's technology sector. Excuse me. U.S. Senator Richard Blumenthal, the United States Senate will impose 500% tariffs on anyone who buys Russian oil, gas, or petrochemicals. 500% tax or tariff on India and China is coming. Israel is going to block a visit by the foreign ministers of Saudi Arabia, UAE, Egypt, Jordan, Qatar, and Turkey to the Palestinian Authority, which was planned for Sunday. Former CIA chief David Petraeus warned that if Russia defeats Ukraine, Vladimir Putin could move to invade a NATO country, most likely Lithuania. Petraeus fears Russia may test NATO by targeting the Baltics next. Toxic pesticides found in tampons from popular brands like Tampax, Lil, Let's, Superdrug, Tesco, and Boots, according to the Daily Mail. In the United Kingdom, tampons have been found to contain glyphosate, toxic herbicide, 40 times higher than the safe limit for drinking water. The WHO has classified the substance as a potential carcinogen linked to cancer, Parkinson's disease, and other serious conditions. So, yeah. So if you use those, you might want to be careful. Several Israeli government ministries recently held a secret meeting to discuss preparations for a possible escalation of tensions with Iran. The meeting focused on scenarios involving an Israeli attack on Iranian soil or widespread Iranian retaliation. According to Ma'ariv, officials have warned that in the event of such a conflict, Israel could face a barrage of thousands of missiles, some weighing up to 700 kilograms, targeting both strategic locations and civilian areas. Urgent alerts. Iran has issued a notice to airmen announcing temporary airspace closures around Tehran on June 1st and 2nd, 2025, due to planned rocket launches and drone activities. Dates and times are June 1st, 2025, airspace closed from 9:30 to 12:30. June 2nd, 2025, airspace closed from 5:30 to 8:30. NuScale has won a U.S. approval for small nuclear reactor design. This is pretty big. NuScale Power Corp, the only company with U.S. approval for a small nuclear reactor, has now won regulatory support for a second design that may go into service by the end of the decade. U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission formally authorized the company's 77 megawatt reactor design. According to a statement Thursday, NuScale won similar approval in 2020 for a smaller 60 megawatt version of the reactor, a first for the industry. Global interest in nuclear energy has climbed as companies and governments clamor for clean electricity that's available around the clock to power data centers and factories. NuScale and its peers are developing so-called small modular reactors that can be manufactured in factories, assembled in the field. Trump administration is supporting the rollout of the nuclear power, with the president last week just signing executive orders aimed at expediting the deployment of SMRs and advanced reactors. The SMR approach remains untested, with only a handful that have been built to date in China and Russia, but NuScale Chief Executive Officer John Hopkins said the NRC approval will help accelerate his plans. Critical minerals scoreboard. Most important is not who owns them, it's who refines them. China is number one in all categories except nickel. Other countries are mostly footnotes. The United States does not even get an honorable mention. So we are really having problems with all of this, especially if we're going into major things with China itself. So I don't know how we do that, but we need to get our industrialization base back. United States Secretary of Defense Hegseth called on Asian countries to boost their military spending to increase regional deterrence against China. It is to be clear to all that Beijing is credibly preparing to potentially use military force to alert the balance of power in the Indo-Pacific. There's no reason to sugarcoat it. The threat China poses is real, and it could be imminent. European Commission spokesman, EU is ready to introduce countermeasures in response to the latest tariff hikes by the United States. So the tariffs are the big thing. They are really back in the mindset of everybody. But China, according to Hegseth and all of the military higher-ups, we're getting closer and closer to some form of a tension or action against China. And whatever that looks like, I don't know. I can't tell you, but China would be a concerning thing just because of what they just laid out right there. We don't really have the ability to manufacture. We don't have the ability to, create industrially rare earths for things like weapon systems and stuff like that. Their shipbuilding is intensely, better than ours. And ours is, we're a service industry now. Everybody just shows up, clicks on computers, and then, works on finances and stuff like that. There's actual industry in China. They build ships, they build vehicles, electric vehicles, reactors, all kinds of stuff. And we're just not doing that. And because of that, we're going to have a major problem. So that is it. Rapture Ready is right. Greenland would be one answer. That's why they're going for it, because, and honestly, from what I've read with the rare earth thing, it's not so much we don't have them here. It's that with environmental laws and everything else, we don't have the ability to process them. We don't have the ability to take them and, put them out at an industrial scale. And one of the main obstacles is, our environmental stuff, which is why China's very good at it, because they don't give a crap about their environment. They just go and extract it from the earth, or same thing with Africa, get it from there, and then put a bunch of chemicals through it and pump that crap into the atmosphere, and nobody cares. Like, here in America, there's laws, and you're not allowed to do that stuff, which is, again, back to the environmental thing, when they're like, oh, you guys, need to not have straws and do this and that to make the environment better. And you're like, well, look at India and China. 90% of everything comes from them of a toxicity kind of level. So we can do everything in the world, but if they're not going to adhere to better environmental policy, then it doesn't matter. So that is it. Environmental laws are important. I'm not saying they're not. I'm just saying that they are a hindrance, and they they are the reason why we don't have. They're the reason why China is able to do what they're doing. They're able to do what they're doing in China because they don't have environmental laws. So they don't care. That's why people get poisoned and crap happens and buildings collapse. They don't care. Here we do. So it's a hindrance. So how we solve that problem, I don't know. I guess we'll see. All right, friends. I will see you on the next one. God bless and have a great Saturday. Hit that like button. Do the subscribe thing. Darken out the bell. Get the notifications. Sorry about the first go around of this where the audio wasn't working. I don't know what's going on with that. It worked now. So here we are. Have a great day.